The Bloody Benders are a family of killers operating in the 1870s out of Kansas, USA. As is the case with a lot of old cases, it can often be difficult to determine fact from fiction, as cases often become embroiled with embellishment, as everyone adds their own spin on the real events. One thing we can be certain of, however, is that the Benders were the first known serial killers operating on US soil. The origins of the family can be traced back to Germany, and the two men of the family, Father John Bender Sr. and son John Bender Jr., arrived in Kansas in 1870. Presumably to try and build a life before the two women of the family, Mother Elvira Bender and daughter Kate Bender, made the trip over. John Sr. was known as a solemn man of little communication. He spoke with a thick German accent, and his vocabulary consisted of little more than grunts and curses. His son, however, was the more sociable of the two, and it was not unusual to see him laughing or cracking a joke. The two men selected a plot of land along the Osage Trail, a trail frequented by men looking to make a better life for themselves in the West during the Gold Rush era. Father and son constructed a cabin to serve as a rest stop for weary travellers. Towards the end of 1871, the women of the family joined them, and the cabin was divided in two by canvas to enable the cabin to function as both a family home as well as a general store and an inn for lonely souls travelling along the Osage Trail. Over the following years, people began to go missing along the trail. Being 19th century Kansas, this was not unheard of. The mail service was slow and life was tough, so the death toll was at first not noticed. It wasn't until March 1873 when well-known local physician William H. York disappeared while travelling along the trail. The local council decided that local farms would be searched for any evidence leading to the whereabouts of the doctor. The search began as local law enforcement searched high and low in a systematic search of the properties along the trail. 3 days into the search, a local farmer noticed some of the Benders' livestock wandering on the trail, clearly malnourished. This led to law enforcement searching the Bender property. The cabin had been recently abandoned, with a majority of its items having been cleared out and taken with them. Those inside the building also reported an overwhelming stench which seemed to be emanating from a trapdoor in the cabin, which officers could see a pool of clotted blood around. An excavation of the property began, in which 10 bodies, including that of physician William H. York, were found. The doctor was found to have been bludgeoned from behind and having had his throat cut. 8 other men were found to have been killed using the same methods. The only exception was that of an 18-month-old girl who appeared to have been buried alive alongside the corpse of her father. It was clear that the officers had uncovered one of the most horrific things that the US had seen up to that point. Alongside the full corpses were large quantities of dismembered limbs, making it impossible to tell with any certainty exactly how many deaths the Benders had caused. Rumours began to circulate in the area that lonely men were enticed into the property by daughter Kate. Known to be of voluptuous beauty, some rumours claimed that she performed throughout the county as Professor Miss Kate Bender, a psychic medium that would carry out seances in which she'd distract her victims before a family member was able to strike them on the back of the head. One thing that remained consistent in the many variations of the Bender tale was the use of the canvas that divided the property. No matter which details changed, whether it be the killer, the weapon, or the trickery involved, each story told how the victim was struck through the curtain before being dragged to the other side of the curtain, stripped of all their valuables, and finally being thrown through the trap door and having their throat cut. So what became of the 4 serial killers? Well, that's the scariest part. Nobody quite knows. There are a great deal of rumours on what became of the 4. Legends say that John Sr. ran off with all their money before being confronted by his wife and daughter at Lake Michigan and then jumping to his death. Other rumours state that the 4 escaped to Mexico by way of train and John Sr. died of a hemorrhage on the way. 2 women were arrested for larceny in 1889 in Michigan and were identified as Elvira and Kate Bender. The 2 were identified by 2 residents of Osage via a tin-type photograph. However, the 2 women were eventually released after doubt on their true identity mounted. What's scarier is that multiple posses were active in dealing out frontier justice to the Benders as they were caught. Multiple groups of Benders were claimed to have been caught by multiple posses, suggesting that potentially several innocents were murdered by what amounted to little more than lynch mobs.